They live in ambiguous loss. Every day. They don't know
You
what
don't
happened.
know. Not knowing is almost worse than knowing.
It is. I think it is based on families that I've spoken with. So every day is almost like torture for them. So we give them answers through working with a lot of collaborators and lots of people in the community. And it's not what they want to hear, but they know.
Yeah.
They know what happened, and now they're going to get the remains of their loved one back. They're going to be able to have a burial and go and visit and bring flowers.
Welcome to The Current, where we learn more about what's happening at Texas State University by talking to faculty, staff, students, and alumni, friends of the university here in this podcast. My name is Kelly Damphousse. I'm the president here at Texas State, and I'm super excited to welcome my friend Kate Spradley here. Now, Kate is one of our professors in the Department of Anthropology. It's actually Forensic Anthropology is your background, and I think you're probably, in my mind, when I was thinking about coming to Texas State, you're actually one of the first people I thought about. That's how famous you are.
Wow.
And I've been looking forward to having you on the podcast because I think what you do is so interesting. How's that for a setup? You're the most famous person here at Texas State. But I think what you do is so interesting. But before we get to what you do, let's talk about what you did and how you got here. So where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Little Rock, Arkansas.
Little Rock.
Mm-hmm.
I did not know that.
Yes.
So I spent some time there. I spent 5 years up in Jonesboro.
Yes.
So, yeah.
I was in Fayetteville.
Oh, well, that's too bad.
It is,
so,
yes.
So you went to Fayetteville. So what high school did you go to?
I went to Little Rock Central High.
Okay. What is their mascot?
Tigers.
The Tigers. Okay,
Tigers.
Very good.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's got kind of a famous story there, that high school, right?
It does.
Yeah. Tell us about, in case people don't know about it.
So it's home of the Little Rock Nine.
Yeah.
It was a time of integration. They were trying to integrate the school, and there was a lot of people trying to prevent it at the time, and it was a very big deal.
Yeah, way before your time.
Way before my time, yes.
Yeah. And so you grew up, what did your parents do?
My father is a lawyer, and my mother, for most of her life, worked in human resources at Dillard's department store.
Okay, that's a big deal. And I don't think people realize Dillard's is big in Little Rock.
It is.
And then Walmart, of course, up in northwest part of Arkansas.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, so you graduate from high school and then go up to Fayetteville, unfortunately. And so I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that. But anyways, you go to Fayetteville and go to University of Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
What happens up there?
Actually took a gap year before they were called a gap
Oh,
year.
really?
I did. And then I went to UALR, and I just took an anthropology class on a whim, and I didn't know what it was, but it sounded interesting, and it was the only thing that interested me. So when I took every anthropology class there, I went up to Fayetteville and finished my degree, and I stayed there for a master's as well.
I think that's so telling. Most students, if you ask them when they're in high school to just give them a blank piece of paper and write down all the majors you can think of, they can only think of 5 or 6.
Right.
And psychology, biology, chemistry, and they start running out of things. And then they go to college and they go, oh, there's 200 degrees I can choose from. And that's why there's so much, I think, swirl among freshmen. They start running into classmates going, oh, I didn't know I could study film, or I could do whatever, or anthropology.
Right. Yeah. Much bigger world. My parents wanted me to go into accounting, but
my dad did too.
Yeah.
He said the world's always going to need an accountant.
Right.
And actually, now maybe not.
Yeah.
So what was your master's thesis on?
We actually had an internship option
Oh, okay.
at the University of Arkansas, and I did an internship in a medical examiner's office.
Okay. Oh.
Because I was really interested in forensic anthropology at that time.
Was that a big deal at Arkansas?
It caught the attention of people, but it wasn't a huge deal at the University of Arkansas.
Yeah.
But,
You wouldn't say they were known for that.
No, they weren't known for that
Yeah.
at all. But there was someone there who did forensic work, and she was a mentor to me, and took me on some cases.
That's how that happens, right?
It is.
You meet someone and they say, hey, let me show you something. And next thing you know, you show back up again and they say, well, she must be interested.
Yes, that's exactly how it happened.
Yeah, so very good. So then you're kind of hooked, right? And
Yes.
so where's your doctoral program taking you?
I went to the University of Tennessee in Knoxville,
Yeah.
home of the first, as they say, body farm.
First body farm there. Yeah.
Yes.
And I remember hearing about that because I was a criminal justice undergrad, hearing about the body farm, which sounded so intriguing, but it's before the internet, so I really didn't understand what it was. But explain a little bit what they're doing there at Tennessee.
They call it the Anthropological Research Facility.
It's probably safer.
Yes, it is much safer, more clinical.
ARF.
ARF, absolutely. I was just about to say that. So they call it ARF. And since the 1980s, early 1980s, people have been donating their bodies to the body farm. Really, it's a willed body donation program run through the University of Tennessee by the Anthropology Department. So they know why they're donating, because when bodies are placed out there, we're looking at lots of different things, but most famously, how long it takes for the body to decompose.
Yeah.
And then other scientists come in and look at insects, to estimate time since death. So there are a lot of body donations. I think we're up to about 100 a year, and that leaves a lot of skeletons to study.
And that's really the goal is there's a criminal justice and investigation aspect. So when you find a body in the woods, one of the things you want to do is like, when did this person pass away?
Yes, when is the key thing.
Yeah, time and date of death, so you can go backwards. And there's a natural decomposition, but if you're in the wild, it's different from if you are in a house or something like that.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm telling you something you don't already know.
No, but
it's the same thing. People, I'm just reasoning through it myself.
Yes.
What little I know, but that's what makes it special, because it's outside.
It is. It is outside, and people are familiar with donating their body to a medical school for dissection, but not as many people are familiar with donating for decomposition research. But there was a poll once at the University of Tennessee while I was there that asked people in the community, what is the number one thing you think about when you think about the University of Tennessee? Football was number one, of course, but number two was the body farm.
That's why you're so famous, because eventually you get here. But so how do you get to Texas State from there?
Well, I graduated in 2006, and I postdoced there for a year.
That's 19 years ago. I don't know if you know.
Yeah.
I don't want to remind you of that, but sometimes I forget. Like 2006 just seems like yesterday, but
it really does. Yeah. But almost 20 years ago. And I postdoced there for a year, and I worked on a project for the FBI. And then I got my first academic job in Florida, at the University of West Florida.
Okay.
And back then, working in a medical examiner's office or working at a university were really the two choices. Now there's so much more you can do.
Really?
Yes. Oh. So I got a job at Pensacola, Florida, and it was lovely. They had a great underwater archaeology program, but it wasn't a border state. I really wanted to work in a border state, and 3 months into the job, someone called me here, actually Michelle Hamilton from Texas State, and she said, would you apply for a job here? And I said, absolutely.
She's very convincing, by the way.
She is very convincing, yes.
And so you applied here, and so when did you come to Texas State?
I came in 2008.
Okay, 2008.
So right as things were really getting started.
Tell me more about the body farm. People talk about it here locally, and I don't think they really understand it, and I think it is one of the signature things that kind of separates Texas State from other universities, and it really is kind of your baby, right? So
I would say that it really started before I got here, but yes, I think for all of the faculty here, we really appreciate this body farm. Some people think that maybe it should be called a ranch. So this is Texas, but it's never really caught on. The body farm in Tennessee, or the ARF, is located near the hospital, and it is surrounded on 3 sides by a parking lot.
Okay.
It is 1.5 acres.
So super small,
It's
concentrated.
really small, and you have about 100 donations set out at any time, so you don't have a lot of room to walk. Here in Texas, at Texas State, our body farm is 26 acres.
Wow.
So we really have a lot of space, and that allows us to do different types of research there. So
about where they're located. And,
exactly, where they're located. We can put some in the sun, we can put some in the shade, we can put some in water. We have water tanks out there. At Tennessee, you only have shade. I never saw a skeleton in my 6 years there even remotely turn white. And the leaves fall every year, so they were usually stained a brown color, but here in Texas, the sun is so intense, you see these white bleached out bones within 6 months.
Wow.
There's something I'd never seen in
Tennessee. It's unbelievable to think how quickly that happens, though.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's why these research facilities are needed, because people decompose in different environments.
And that's the beauty of it. If you find a body in a certain situation, go back into the research archives and go, here's kind of the setting, temperature and time of year and wet or dry, sunny or shade. And then based on that, say, well, here's where you are. And actually, I had a colleague at University of Oklahoma who actually had a different kind of approach to not just looking at this, but with I'm forgetting the term that was used.
Entomology?
Entomology,
yes,
yeah.
yes.
Thank you.
Entomology is really a more precise way to do it.
Yeah.
Anthropologists can take you so far,
Yeah.
but we provide some pretty reliable estimates, but I would always go with entomology.
So let's talk about
Sure.
what you got going on here now, which is, I think, probably has its roots in Tennessee philosophically, but it's different in many ways, right?
It's so different.
Yeah.
It's so different. So when I was at the University of Tennessee taking a forensic anthropology class, we learned how to estimate the biological profile, how to tell where in the world somebody was from, how old they are, how tall they were, and interpret trauma and events surrounding death. And we were trained to write a really good report, in our minds, probably the lengthier the better, and give it over to law enforcement. Today, that has totally changed. With the advent of databases like the Missing and Unidentified Persons database, forensic anthropologists take a bigger role in actually case management and ensuring that cases don't fall through the crack and continue to be unidentified.
Which was actually kind of interesting because we also have this cold case program that our students are starting to get involved with as
Yes.
well, which some of those cold cases were kind of traditional homicides, but some of them were found bodies as well. And
Absolutely.
So talk about what we're doing here at the Texas State Body Farm.
So Operation Identification is an initiative that I founded in 2013, and it was really because of the influx of migrants who were coming across the border from Central America. There was a big crisis, lots of gang violence, and you have a lot of people migrating over here, and as a result, you have a lot of deaths. And I heard about this one county in particular, Brooks County, which has a Border Patrol checkpoint, which many people try to evade as they travel north, continuing to Houston. And I heard that they were burying all of the people. One year they had 60 unidentified deaths. The next year it was 130, so that's a big boom.
Wow.
And I heard that they were burying people and not taking DNA samples, not taking fingerprints, not keeping track of where they buried people. And essentially they were ensuring that person would never be identified.
Yeah.
And that really caught my attention. So I wanted to help with this matter. And I'm pretty naive in a lot of things. So some of my colleagues and I went down there and offered to help. And, it's 2025 and we're still doing this work.
Wow.
Not necessarily we're still working in Brooks County, but we're working in a lot of other counties that were functioning like Brooks County.
Yeah. Can you imagine knowing that your family member left and then never hearing from him again? That's got to be tragic. And so for you to be helping them find out the end of the story, if there was an end of the story. Yeah.
Right. They live in ambiguous loss. Every day. They don't know what happened.
Not knowing is almost worse than knowing.
It is. I think it is based on families that I've spoken with. So every day is almost like torture for them. So we give them answers through working with a lot of collaborators and lots of people in the community. And it's not what they want to hear, but they know.
Yeah.
They know what happened, and now they're going to get the remains of their loved one back. They're going to be able to have a burial and go and visit and bring flowers.
Do they repatriate the body too, taking it back to the home country sometimes?
Yes, absolutely. We work with consulates and we ensure repatriation back to the country of origin. We work with the Justice of the Peace, the funeral homes, a variety of people are involved in this process.
It's really interesting.
Yes, and the consulates will typically pay for it
Oh,
if
is
it's
that
going
right?
out of country. Yeah.
It's part of the world that I don't know much about
Right.
for sure.
So
Yeah.
we do everything from start to finish. Usually we go into counties, they don't even ask us to come in, but we know that we need to come in. And we start working within the county, and they're usually pretty welcoming to us.
So are you creating a database based on remains, and then someone comes forward and says, hey, I'm missing someone, and then you're trying to make a connection?
Yes. So fortunately, we didn't have to make the database. There already is a national database called the National and Unidentified Missing Persons System. It's been around since about 2008. And so every skeleton that's unidentified that we are involved with, we put all the information that we have into NamUs. We wash all of the personal effects. We have a forensic washing machine. And then we photo them and upload them to NamUs. And it's usually the personal effects that they recognize recognize, and they call, and then that kicks off a DNA comparison, and then we get an identification.
Now, are students involved in this?
100% they are. So I employ a student as master's and PhD level assistants to work in the lab. I employ some undergraduates, but we have volunteers from undergraduate to graduate. And so what I think is really important is that they get to see every aspect of this.
Yeah.
I take them with me to go into counties, to introduce myself and to talk about what we do. I take them to do geophysical surveys, cemeteries, and to exhume. Lots of volunteers to go and do exhumations. And right now we've been trained by the FBI how to take fingerprints from decomposing bodies.
Oh, interesting.
And that has upped our identification rate considerably. But students are involved in all aspects, so from start to finish. And I think that's why we are the most unique program in the country. Not only we just have a huge Forensic Anthropology Center, but our students are learning more than just how to write a report. They're going out and they're working in a humanitarian context. Globally, there's a lot of migration and there's a lot of death, and they're going to be able to take these skills and go work anywhere in the world and apply them. It's
really interesting. You mentioned fingerprints because I think people are fast forwarding to DNA, and DNA is becoming a little bit more ubiquitous. But fingerprints is an old-fashioned system that still works, right? And we have a much larger database to compare things to.
Fingerprints are the best way to go. They're the quickest way to resolve an identification and the quickest way to get somebody home to their loved ones. And as an anthropologist, we are not trained in fingerprints. Nobody said the word fingerprint when I was in school. And I had the FBI latent print analyst, he is really a go-getter, contact me and said, I know what you're doing, and I would like to come and train you to take fingerprints. Wow. And I was like, well, are we going to be able to take fingerprints? We're dealing with skeletons and really decomposed people. And he said, yes, you can do it from decomposed people. And it's more work, it's a little bit more effort, but you can get a result in hours.
It's interesting because in the olden days, you get a fingerprint and then you'd have to go through a file cabinet of pictures and try to figure things out. And they've computerized it in such a way, the technology is such as that you can put a fingerprint into a database and the computer can find the match.
Absolutely. We send off our fingerprints to Brian at the FBI, and he runs them through, all of the U.S. databases, including DHS databases, and then they're also run through foreign government fingerprint databases as well. So sometimes,
that's interesting.
Yes, the FBI can get you into cast a wider net on the fingerprints. So sometimes we have an ID within an hour. At most, it's been a couple of days.
So you've got these great programs, and I love it because our students are learning something that's going to be very practical. I think one of the hallmarks of Texas State is our faculty are not just interested in what happens in the classroom, but outside the classroom as well. But let's talk about what happens in the classroom, because I think a lot of our students also learn a lot there. And you're teaching a really unique curriculum here that is not available at very many universities. And tell us a little bit more about some of the classes you're teaching.
I teach the skeletal methods class, which is basically forensic anthropology analysis, bioarchaeological analysis. There's 2 classes at the master's level, 1 class at the PhD. This semester I'm teaching the PhD level class. And so, one of the things also about the body farm that we have here, we have all of these skeletons at our disposal of known age, known sex, have all different types of traumas, so we can use those in our classrooms as well. So this is hugely beneficial to our students. Most people don't have this resource, and when you go to school at a place that has this resource, you want to teach at a place that has this resource. Why Texas State was a big draw for me. So we're learning everything forensic anthropology in that class. I'm trying to train them to be the next generation of forensic anthropologists. And then I teach the biological anthropology theory class for PhD students. I love theory. I love data analysis. I like to sit in my office and just take data and run a lot of statistical programs. I don't get to do that as much these days, but that is one of my favorite things. So in that class, I teach PhD students theory and method on how to write basically their dissertation proposal.
That's awesome.
And then I teach a research design class for master's students that I love and really kind of guide them through the process of writing a thesis proposal.
So what would be a typical master's thesis proposal or project for your students, or dissertation?
One of my master's students, Daniela, she is she's doing an ethnographic project. So she's working with both me and our cultural anthropologist. And she's trying to figure out why law enforcement and county officials in Maverick County are not taking fingerprints when that is the easiest thing they could do. They don't do it. I'm just going to say the law enforcement refuses to do it. Part of the Border Patrol will do it, but why aren't they doing this when this could really improve identification rates and repatriation rates? And I have another master's student who is working on something called the structural vulnerability profile. There's lots of forensic anthropologists say that we need to incorporate signs of stress markers in our forensic anthropology analysis because that is going to be helpful in casting a wider net looking for them. And I think that sounds like a great idea, but no one's ever tested whether or not those are associated with structural vulnerability. So I have a student right now testing that. Is this really something that is useful? Are these biomarkers really associated with vulnerability?
One of the things, as you know, we're looking towards is, in addition to focusing on student success, about becoming a Research 1 or Tier 1 university, depending on who you're talking to. And can you talk a little bit about what it means for a faculty member like you to be at a Research 1 university?
So being at a Research 1 institution, R1 institution, really helps recruit students, especially for the PhD students. They're looking for an R1 institution, and it helps recruit and retain faculty as well. And
we tend to recruit from R1 institutions. They want to come to schools that are like the place they left, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and so that helps with recruiting great students, but also great faculty.
Great faculty as well.
And retaining them. Yeah.
Yes, and retaining students and faculty is very
important. We talk about retaining students all the time, but we don't talk enough about retaining our faculty.
Yes, retaining faculty is important. And the research support as well.
Yeah.
So with R1 comes more of an infrastructure for doing research and getting that support we need to do the research.
I don't think people who are at a Research 1 university understand that being R1 means you have a lot of people who are doing research that's funded by the federal government. There's a lot of conversation right now about how much federal money gets spent on research. But to do the kind of research we need to do, it has to be funded somehow.
Yes.
And writing those grants, there's some art to it, there's some science to it, but there's just some practical stuff like how do I upload it into the whatever technology it takes to accept it. How do you manage a grant when you get it? How do you hire people? How do you expend the funds? How do you get a grant renewal? How do you write a grant report at the end? How do you get the next grant? All those things that take support, right?
Absolutely. So I really like writing grants. I took a writing class twice during my PhD because it helped me finish my dissertation, but it also taught me a lot about writing.
Yeah.
So I really enjoy writing grants, but when you want me to do my own budget or if I had to upload it, I would not know how to do anything. So I am always very grateful for the people here that do that for me, and I think it is always a team effort.
What's your favorite thing about being at Texas State University?
I really like Texas State University a lot. I wanted to come to a university in Texas after I got my job in Florida, and I couldn't think of a better place than Texas State because of the resources it offers for a forensic anthropologist. Yeah. I love that, but I also love the students and the faculty and the community.
I think we're different because of that, the kind of students that want to come here.
Yes.
The faculty, therefore, are attracted to those kind of students. And if you're like-minded, it's like you want to be with people who are like you.
Yes.
And so many of our faculty, like you, could go anywhere else. But I think when they come here, say, oh, I'm a lot like these people here.
Yes.
Because they're attracted to the mission, which is not just a sole focus on research for the sake of research, but research that means something, and also how we can get our students involved with research.
Absolutely. Students are always involved. I write them into the grants. We get them working on things and get them publications.
What I like to do is ask our guest to become the host of the podcast. As I'm answering the question, you might get ready to answer it yourself because sometimes they apply to you as well. So I'd like to hear what you think.
Okay. So I'm Kate Spradley asking the question here.
Welcome to your podcast.
Thank you. So this question is, what's the one thing that always reminds you of home?
Oh, my goodness gracious. So for me, home is Canada. And, for some reason, my mom thought breakfast was the most important meal of the day, and our lives were kind of oriented around that. And so we would get up in the morning, and I grew up in a trailer court, and so the trailer court was always cold, or the trailer we lived in was always cold. And I remember getting out and getting over the register. Like, my dad would turn the heat down at night, and he would turn it on in the morning, and getting over the register with my T-shirt and have the warm air blow on me. And so sometimes just smelling the furnace will trigger a memory of and I'll go back to huddling over that. Mm-hmm. But then we'd go to the kitchen, and Mom would make breakfast, and for us it was almost always like oatmeal or blueberry pancakes or pancakes. But we had wild blueberries out there, so we'd go pick blueberries, and if we were lucky, she still had some left over. She'd throw them in the pancakes. And so for me, whenever I go to I love to go to diners, mm-hmm. and having a blueberry pancake, I think of my mom every time. So it brings back a lot of great memories. What about you? What's a great memory for you?
I would say the thing for me is watching the leaves change colors.
Yeah.
So I grew up in Little Rock, but my dad had some property near a river, and we spent almost every weekend just out in the woods, sleeping in the back of the truck. We would always go there in the fall, and the leaves were so beautiful. And I don't see that very much around here.
You don't. But up mm-hmm. towards the Ozarks and up towards northwest Arkansas, it's some of the most beautiful parts of the entire country. People don't realize. People think you got to go to the northeast to see the flowers, the leaves change. But that area, Springdale,
Fayetteville, it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
And that, just seeing leaves change colors reminds me of home and just, good memories.
Well, thanks for sharing that memory. It's awesome to hear that from you. And thank you all for joining us here on The Current, where we get an opportunity to learn about what's happening at Texas State by talking to faculty, staff, students, and alumni and friends of the university. Can't wait to have you back for the next edition of The Current. And until then, State's up, everyone.